There is a father standing in the dark with his 3-month-old son, and he knows that before sunrise he has to put this baby in the same water where Pharaoh's soldiers throw Hebrew boys after they stop breathing. His name never appears in Scripture, not once. Later we learn the mother's name is Jochebed. The sister is Miriam. The Egyptian princess gets a title. But this man, the father of Moses, shows up in Exodus 2:1 as a man of the house of Levi and vanishes immediately after. One verse. Because this is what empire does. It doesn't just kill sons, it erases fathers. Right now, he can feel the weight of the boy against his ribs. 3 months old. Old enough to smile when you lean close. Old enough to know your voice from a stranger's. And old enough that the crying doesn't stop when you rock him anymore. It gets stronger, louder, more insistent. Every sound that baby makes is a ticking clock. Because Pharaoh has given an order that every Egyptian understands. If you hear a Hebrew boy crying, you report the house. The soldiers come. They take him to the Nile. But here's what wrecks you about this story if you stay with it. The father doesn't fight. He doesn't grab his family and run for the border. He doesn't stand in the doorway with a blade and tell Pharaoh's men they'll have to go through him first. He does something that sounds like surrender, but isn't. He sits down with his wife, and they decide to do exactly what Pharaoh commanded. They're going to put their son in the Nile. They're just going to do it on their terms. Picture the night they make that basket. It's not a cradle, it's a boat. The Hebrew word is tevah, the exact same word used for Noah's Ark. In all of Scripture, only 2 vessels carry this name. Noah's Ark took decades to build and saved 8 people through a flood that drowned the world. This one has to be finished by morning and save 1 baby in a river that already runs red with children. The mother weaves bulrushes, papyrus reeds from the riverbank, still green, fibrous. Her fingers are raw. The father melts pitch and slime, thick black tar that seals the gaps. The smell burns your throat. You can't do this in daylight. You can't let anyone hear. So they work after the house goes quiet, in silence, coating this tiny ark with the same waterproofing that kept Noah's family alive. Except Noah had a promise from God. They have a plan that could collapse a dozen different ways. And this father has to carry the knowledge that he cannot do the one thing fathers exist to do. He cannot stand between his son and the thing that wants to kill him. All he can do is help his wife build the container that will carry the boy away from them. Morning comes. Exodus 2:2 says, "And the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months." 3 months of holding your hand over his mouth when footsteps pass outside. 3 months of sleeping in shifts, so someone is always awake to keep him quiet. 3 months that just ended. Maybe the father holds his son one last time before they leave the house. Maybe he can't. Maybe touching something you're about to release makes it harder to let go. The mother places the baby inside the basket. She's done this motion 100 times, laying him down to sleep settling him into the cradle. But this time, when she pulls her hands back, she doesn't know if she'll ever touch him again. Exodus 2:3. And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein. And she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. They don't just throw it in the current and hope. They've been watching. They know where Pharaoh's daughter bathes. They know what time she comes. This isn't blind faith. This is strategy, wrapped in desperation, wrapped in the thinnest sliver of hope. The father sets the basket in the reeds at the water's edge. The current tugs it gently. It holds. The pitch doesn't crack. And then he has to turn around and walk away. Exodus 2:4. And his sister stood afar off, to wit what would be done to him. Miriam stays. She's maybe 7 years old enough to understand. She just watched her parents put her baby brother in the river. Too young to understand why love sometimes looks like abandonment. She stands far off, far enough that if soldiers come, she's just a child near the water. Close enough that if the basket tips or sinks or gets spotted by the wrong person, she can run home and tell them it's over. The distance between Miriam and that basket is the distance between hope and grief. And she stands in it for hours. Here's what breaks open if you sit with this long enough. Every parent hits the moment where they realize love is not enough. You can do everything right. Feed them every meal. Sing them to sleep every night. Pray over them every morning. And still the world can take them. Pharaoh didn't ask if this baby was wanted. He didn't care that the father worked himself raw in the brick pits every day to keep his family alive. The decree was simple. Hebrew boys die. And when the king wants your son dead, there is nothing a father can do except build a boat and hope the river is kinder than the empire. Hours pass. The sun climbs. Miriam's legs ache from standing. And then in the early light, Pharaoh's daughter comes down to the water with her attendants. They're carrying oil and linen. This is routine for her. She bathes here because the reeds are thick and the current is gentle, and nobody bothers royalty at the river. Exodus 2:5. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. She doesn't ignore it. She doesn't send it downstream. She has them bring it to her. And when they open the lid, the baby cries. Exodus 2:6. And when she had opened it, she saw the child. And behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the Hebrews' children. She knows. Immediately. She knows this baby is supposed to be dead. She knows her father gave the order. She knows every Egyptian on that bank knows. And she has a choice. Obey the law or break it. Honor her father or save this boy. She chooses the boy. Now Miriam steps forward. This is the kind of courage that doesn't get preached enough. A Hebrew child approaches the daughter of the man who wants her baby brother drowned and asks a question that could get her killed. Exodus 2:7. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? She's offering to find someone to feed him, someone Hebrew, someone who might already know how. Exodus 2:8. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. The mother who put her son in the Nile 4 hours ago is now standing in front of Pharaoh's daughter, being hired to nurse her own baby. Exodus 2:9. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, Take this child away, and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. The empire will pay her to raise her own son. The father who couldn't protect him will watch him grow up in their house, fed and safe, because an Egyptian princess decided his life mattered more than her father's decree. And when the boy is weaned, when he's old enough to leave, the mother will bring him back to the palace. She'll hand him over, and he'll grow up Egyptian. He'll learn their language, wear their linen, eat their food. He'll become the son of Pharaoh's daughter, and his father will see him sometimes, walking through the district in royal clothes, close enough to recognize, too far to claim. That's the cost. The father gave up his son to save him. It worked. But he never got him back. Not really. Moses grew up in the palace, and by the time he killed the Egyptian and fled to Midian, by the time he stood at the burning bush and heard God say, Go back, both his parents were likely dead. They never saw what their son became. They only knew what they had to do to keep him breathing one more day. So let me ask you something. What are you holding right now that you know you can't protect? Maybe it's not a child. Maybe it's the job you've been praying over for 2 years that just got eliminated. Maybe it's the person you love who keeps choosing the thing that's destroying them, and you can't make them stop. Maybe it's the dream that's too big for the resources you have in the room you're standing in. And maybe you've been gripping it so tight your chest hurts because letting go feels identical to losing. But here's what that basket floating in the reeds is trying to show you. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is release what you cannot save. Not because you don't love it, because you do. Not because you're giving up, because you're giving it a chance that your hands can't provide by holding tighter. That father had to walk away from the water. He had to go back to the brick pit and make quota under the whip. He had to sit at the table with his daughter who saw everything and pretend the day was normal. He had to live in the gap between letting go and knowing the outcome. And every single day, for years, he had to trust that the God who kept that basket afloat in the current for 4 hours could keep his son alive in a palace built to hate his people. The basket didn't sink. The princess didn't walk past. Miriam didn't stay silent. And 80 years later, that baby stood on a mountain and talked to God face to face and led 2 million people out of slavery. Not because his father was strong enough to stop Pharaoh, because his father was faithful enough to build a boat and trust the current. So maybe tonight you stop trying to be strong enough to hold everything together. Maybe you weave the basket. Maybe you coat it with pitch. Maybe you set in the water, the one thing you've been gripping in the dark, the thing that's suffocating under the weight of your fear. Not because you know it will survive, but because holding on is killing you both, and the river is the only way forward. The Father's name isn't in Scripture, but his faith is, and sometimes that's the trade. You don't get credit. You don't get to see how it ends. You just get to be the one who loved something enough to let it go, and trusted that the hands waiting downstream were stronger and kinder than yours could ever be.